I am Johnny from UltimatePaperMache.com, and today I'm going to show you how to sculpt a baby orangutan face. I made this little guy yesterday. It took, I started at about 7:30 in the morning, and then it was completely dry and finished about 4:30 yesterday afternoon. So it's a really quick, easy project, and I actually got the idea for this fellow on my website. One of the oldest and still most popular posts on my website is this lady here. She's a mama orangutan, and I made her before I invented the paper mache clay recipe, and a long time before I wrote my book on how to make animal sculptures with paper mache clay, so there was no pattern like on the inside. And it was way before I started making this kind of pattern where, you know, all the shapes are made for you. So she was made exactly the same way that I used to make sculptures when I was back in grade school. And I decided it was just time to do something fun and easy. If you make one of these, please come back to the UltimatePaperMache.com, go to the Daily Sculptors page, click that big yellow button so that you can share a photo of your baby orangutan or anything else you make. That's one of the big projects I've been working on in the last month, was trying to make it easier for us to share our photographs out on UltimatePaperMache.com. I just love seeing what you guys make. And I also want to make sure that if you like really fast, easy projects like this, please let me know in the comments down below, not only about this guy, but what would you like to see next? That not only helps me, but it also, every time we subscribe or comment or like a video, it encourages YouTube to show the video to more people. And that way we can get more people to find out that paper mache isn't just fun for kids, it's fun for us old people too. But now let's hurry up and get to it. I want to show you how to make this little baby orangutan. It's fast, it's easy, and he's just adorable. You want to start out by looking at photographs of baby orangutans and just see the basic outline of their shape. The shapes of an orangutan head are pretty simple. We've got a big oval, and then at the bottom we have a big ball. The muzzle, the ball, is a little bit pointy at the top. You also want to indicate where to put the eyes, and you'll want to put the mouth on there. Now, I put the mouth a little bit too low the first time. I didn't like it, so I just crossed it off and moved it, which is perfectly okay to do at this stage, because you're never going to see this cardboard shape when the orangutan is finished. Now, I forgot to put ears on my orangutan when I was drawing him out, and I had to add those later, but you might want to do that now. When you're happy with the outline, go ahead and cut it out. And now we're ready to start sculpting the face with some crumpled paper and masking tape like I did before, or some crumpled foil and hot glue like I'm going to do in this video. When I made Mama Orangutan years ago, I used a crumpled ball of paper to make the eyes, and I added them a little bit later. This time I just happened to have some 1-inch styrofoam balls, and I used a hot glue gun to put them right where I had drawn the eyes on my cardboard. Then you start adding your shapes with either crumpled foil or crumpled paper. When I made the mama orangutan, as you see here, I used crumpled paper and masking tape. That's a really easy way to do it because orangutans have really simple shapes on their faces. This time I decided to use crumpled foil and hot glue instead. You probably won't want to do that if you're working with kids this time, because you don't want the hot glue gun turned on. You also wouldn't want to do that in a school situation. But it works really well, and I wanted to try out a brand new hot glue gun that I happened to buy a couple of days ago at the hardware store. I put my baby orangutan's forehead on first. It's about the same height as the styrofoam balls that I used. Then I moved down to the bottom for no obvious reason and started working on the lower lip. When you're creating the muzzle, the ball down at the bottom, you want to make sure that you're doing that in 2 pieces so that you have an upper lip and a lower lip. You want to spend some time on that part because it's the mouth that gives him his expression. When you're putting the crumpled foil or paper around the eyes, don't cover the ball. Just put it up right up to the edge, but don't cover it. We're going to put the eyelids on with paper mache almost at the very end of this process, and that's also going to help create a really nice expression for our baby orangutan. Keep adding foil or paper until you have all the shapes the way you want them. When you're using foil, you can use a pen or some other tool to kind of squish everything down and make it nice and flat. And then when you're finished and you have it the way you want it, you'll need to cover either foil or paper with masking tape. This helps the paper mache stick to it. Paper mache definitely does not stick to foil, but it also helps you see all of your shapes. After I had all the masking tape on there, I changed some of the shapes and added a little bit more foil. It's just a little bit easier to see once everything is the same color. And that's also when I figured out that he needed some ears. So I cut some out, added a little bit of an extra tab onto the edge of it so that I would have something to use to glue it onto the back of the cardboard. Orangutan ears look exactly like ours, but I didn't want to go to a whole lot of trouble for all the details. So I just put a little bit of foil around the edges and decided that was good enough. Once the masking tape was on, I could see the shapes a little bit better, and I decided that the muzzle just wasn't quite round enough. So I added some more. I just put it over the masking tape, shaped it as well as I could, and then put more masking tape on top of it. Then I decided that his lower lip wasn't big enough either, so I went ahead and added a little bit more foil. And then I discovered that a screwdriver is a really good tool for making sure that the masking tape goes into that crease between the upper and lower lips. It actually worked really well. It's not what you would usually consider a sculpting tool, but hey, it works. When I liked the way he looked, I put some plastic down on my table so that the paper mache wouldn't stick to everything. Then it was time to start adding the paper mache. I'm using newspaper just torn into strips, and I'm also using a raw flour and water paste. It's a really easy paste to use. You can find the recipe for it out on my website at ultimatepapermache.com. Just click on the recipes link at the very top. If you're doing this in a school environment, or if you're living in a really humid environment where you have a problem with mold, I would recommend using the Elmer's art paste instead. You do want to let just a little bit of your paper wrap around the edges and onto the cardboard back, but don't cover the majority of the cardboard because cardboard tends to warp if you put paper mache on it. I put on one layer of paper strips and paste, and then I put it over the heating vent to dry. It didn't take very long because my furnace is running pretty hard right now. We live in Minnesota and it's pretty cold here right now, so it maybe took an hour. It didn't dry completely, but it was dry enough so that I could pick it up and move it around without disturbing any of the wet paper mache. And then I got some paper towels and pulled them apart so that I was just using one ply at a time. You don't actually need to add a second layer of paper mache if you don't want to. I just thought it might be kind of fun to have the little bumps on the paper towels that looks a little bit like skin. It's just something I wanted to do. You do want to tear off the edges just like you do with the newsprint so that you don't have little sharp edges that you'll be able to see on the finished piece. And I just used the paper towels, strips of them with my flour and water paste, and just added one more layer. I used the paper towels to add the wrinkles that go underneath the baby orangutan's eyes. I also rolled up some of the towels with the paste on the inside of it and used that for the upper and lower eyelids. I wanted to make sure that the baby's eyes were wide open because big round eyes make him look really happy and innocent, and that's just a look I was going for. Then when I was happy with the way he looked, I put him back over the heating vent so it could dry all the way through this time. While the paper mache was drying, I got out some pieces of brown paper. It's a heavy brown paper like the kind that paper bags are made out of. And then I mixed some water with some burnt sienna acrylic paint and painted it over the brown paper on both sides. I'm going to be using this for the baby's hair, so I'm not going to be using it until the very end of this project, but I wanted to have it ready when the paint on the baby's face was all dry. When the paper mache was dry, I gave it a coat of white acrylic gesso. The white ground of the gesso just makes it really nice, a surface to paint on. I covered him with burnt sienna after the gesso was dry. That's the same color that I used for the hair that I made already, and so he's going to match really nice. Then I got out my copy of the color mixing recipes for portraits, and and found a color recipe for Northern European human skin, which just happens to match rather nicely to a baby orangutan. I put that on his muzzle and on the big round circles that go around his eyes. I used burnt umber to cover the eyes, and then I also dry brushed it over all of the brown parts of the orangutan. This is kind of like really sparse fur, and I wanted to make sure that the reddish orange color of the burnt sienna would show through it. I painted the pupils black. When the black was dry, I mixed up some burnt umber with golden glazing liquid and brushed it around the eyes where the creases are, around the upper and lower eyelids. And then I used a paper towel to pull most of it off. It just leaves just a little bit of a shadow there so that we can see where the eyelids are. I did the same thing for his mouth, and when that was done, I added 2 white spots for the reflections in the eyes. And then it was time to get started on the hair. I cut off the bottom portion that I hadn't painted so it was all nice and straight. Then I folded it up to make it just a little bit easier to cut strips, really, really narrow strips of, well, hair, I guess you could say. I left about 1/2 inch of uncut area just so that all the hairs would kind of hold together. I did end up with some of them on the counter, but that really wasn't the intention. I unfolded the paper strips and I had enough to go around the head twice. To start with, I put just a dab of glue right at the very top of the back of the head. Stuck the hair on there so that it goes straight up, but just right in the middle, and then turned it over just to make sure I was going to like it. I decided that I did, so I added some more hot glue all the way down the edges. Once one layer was on, I went ahead and added some more hot glue right on top of it so I could add the second layer of hair, glued it all down, and turned it over to see what it was going to look like. So now he's all done, and I think he's just really cute. If you like the hair on the mama orangutan that I made years ago, make sure that you go see the original post. I'll put a link to it right down here. That was a little more expensive because I did have to buy a cotton mop to do that and some orange dye, but it did look pretty cool. And of course, if you wanted to use paper mache clay over this guy, you could. It's totally up to you. There's so many different ways that you can do paper mache. That's one of the things that makes it so much fun for me. Now remember, if you do like fast, easy projects like this, make sure that you leave a comment down below and let me know. And if you have any ideas for upcoming videos, let me know those too. And then go make something and come visit me, ultimatepapermache.com. I'll see you there.